Listening to Bad Dog Agility, bringing you training tips, interviews, and news about the great sport of dog agility.
I'm Esteban.
And I'm Sarah, and this is episode 232.
Today's podcast is brought to you by OneTDC.com. Dog agility can be hard on your dog's body. Help keep their joints and muscles healthy with 1TDC. 1-tetradecanol complex is a clinically studied blend of unique fatty acid oils that can support your dog's joint health. 1TDC provides a healthy inflammatory response from head to tail. All of our listeners will automatically qualify for a great 1TDC special offer by purchasing online at BDA1TDC.com. That's BDA, the number 1, TDC.com.
Today's podcast is also brought to you by HitItBoard.com. HitItBoard.com has the innovative training tools you need for agility. Having problems with the dog walker A-frame? The HitItBoard can fix that. Your dog doesn't like tugging? They'll love the Tug It. Can't move your A-frame around by yourself? The Move It can. Go to HitItBoard.com and use discount code BDA10 to get 10% off your order. That's HitItBoard.com. Today, we are very excited to be joined on the podcast by Tamás Tráj, a very internationally respected judge leading the forefront of course design. Welcome to the podcast, Tamás.
Hi, guys.
Well, we are all just back from the Agility World Championship. I guess it's been a month, but it takes a long time to recover from that kind of trip. And I wanted to talk to Tamás about course design. This is something where among all of the judges, Tamás's name comes up over and over and over again as leading the way in course design and designing courses that are fun, fast, and safe for the dog while also being very challenging. So Tamás, tell us a little bit about your philosophy of course design or the kinds of things that you're looking at when you design a course.
So for me, actually, the most important is designing safe courses, of course. And I think that's the most important. That's why we are responsible for giving safe courses. But at the same time, I like to challenge the teams as well, of course, depending on the level. But my philosophy is finding the balance between technical parts and nice natural lines, and of course, focusing on the safety part as well.
So when you're looking at safety, I think the obvious thing that comes to people's mind is going to be approach to contacts. Are there other things that you're looking at in terms of safety?
Yeah, so many things. For example, giving enough space for both the handlers and the dogs, giving enough space for the landing after an obstacle, and of course the approaches for the contact obstacles. And we have those, I just call them special jumps, like the tire, the broad jump, the wall, and the double jump, spread jump in the States. That's really important too, because it's kind of the same. Especially the tire. The tire is one of the hardest obstacle managing.
Yeah, I totally agree. Those are all very special obstacles. And if you're going to be very safe, most people want to give a straight approach to those obstacles. But let me ask you this. If you have a course and you have all of those special jumps on there, does it restrict your judging design a little bit? Are those obstacles, maybe we should get rid of one or two of them, and then maybe we can have more flexibility if you can put in a regular jump there?
Yeah, it depends. So if the ring size is big enough, so I get enough flexibility putting all the special jumps and the contacts in one ring, but still I'm able to give them a straight approach, and but just the ring size is big enough, then that's fine. So then I can use all the special jumps if I want. But if you get a small size ring, then it's really hard to manage because, then you use that spot already once. So really hard to get back and use it again because those special jumps can be used only once in the FCI regulations. So, it's just too too crowded then. So you not really possible. I mean, it's just hard.
Interesting. And you ran at the Agility World Championship in which height? Large dogs?
Large, yes.
Okay. And did you run both the team and individual runs?
Only individual this time.
Okay. So you did do the individual run.
Yes.
I think it was the two. I understand that a lot of people were complaining about the many backsides, I think, on jumping. That was individual jumping?
Yes.
And then there was also the low qualifying rate in the agility individual run. Where
So, but there is a huge difference between having a course, what you feel uncomfortable, and maybe the challenges are not that challenging and it's just not nice, or sometimes you get a really fast course what you enjoy so much, and even you fail, you're leaving the course with smile. So, and the agility course was for me this last situation. So I felt that course really good, fluent and challenging. It was hard, but I think it was just really comfortable for the dogs and for the handlers as well. We had to run, but everything was on the line. Compared to the jumping, it was a really nice one. And the jumping, I felt the backsides too much. Well, I'm not against the backside. I like using backsides, especially the S backsides, but as long as they are on the natural line. But when you have those forced backsides, sometimes without speed, that's physically really hard to manage for the dogs as well. And I didn't feel that challenging after having the same situation again and again and again. It was so tiring, and it was not that enjoyable for me.
Yeah,
and for sure, Eide the dogs.
Yeah, and I don't mean to be critical of the personally to be critical of the design or the judge or anything like that. I do note that course had a much higher qualifying rate than the agility round, which I thought was very, very well designed. I think even if the teeter did not have the tunnel behind it, even if there weren't all the fly-offs, the Q rate would have gone obviously a little bit higher, but not too much higher because the handlers were making mistakes all over the place. I do feel like it was very challenging. What do you think about the teeter? Did your dog fly off the teeter, or they stayed on the teeter?
Well, she left immediately after the teeter got the grant. So she released herself and she got the tunnel. But it was a little bit my handling mistake too, because she was really high. But that's what I recognized after the second jump, and I just saw that she's running with crazy full speed on the teeter and drifting a little bit, and then I started to control her with my body, so I turned into the teeter, and so my body was in the tunnel, of course, with that handling mistake. So she took the tunnel. And actually, when I walked the course, I didn't really think that can be that hard. But for so many dogs, it was. Even really experienced teams got elimination there, or had flying teeter, surprisingly. So actually, that was the trickiest part of the course.
So are you going to remember that when you design courses in the future? Are you going to maybe one day you have a teeter and then a turn after the teeter and then there's a tunnel there and you say, wait, I remember now this happened. I'm not going to do that. Is it going to influence what you do?
A little bit, yes. Especially because that's this side of the handling. But I would mention the judging parts too, because when you have this kind of situation, when you really force the handler leaving the teeter, going too far when the dog is on the teeter, so you as really an independent a theater, then you get more flying seesaw, or when those situations are on the border, it's still on it, or the dog flew already. So actually, I think it's really hard to judge.
Right.
And for me, it would be I would use this kind of sequences for the training for sure. But if I judge a big competition, I would definitely skip that, because it would be really hard for me for sure.
That's really interesting. The judgeability of a course is something that I'm becoming more and more aware as part of the course design, or should be part of the course design. And so it's interesting to hear that point from you as well, that you, like, on the one hand, as I guess trainers, we expect to be tested. We like it watching and seeing, where the training is really coming up and meeting the challenges. But as a judge, if you're going to put something in where you are going to get a lot of very split-second calls, that's putting you in a very tough position, and with everybody checking on live streams after the fact, and you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're going to have a split-second call.
Yes, but the thing is, when you design a course for a competition, as a judge, you have to be able to judge it. So that's the first part of this course design thing, that you're designing a nice course and safe course, so on. But then you double check. If you are able to judge it, you can get those positions to see the contacts, for example, or the angles or the approaches, for example. And you know how to judge because so you're gonna, when you design the course, you have always solutions, and you imagine how they run it. And at the same time, you're preparing for all kind of mistakes. So you imagine that, okay, what kind of mistakes they will have there, and so mentally you're preparing for your judging parts too. So then less unexpected situations, so you can decide quicker. But of course, sometimes something unexpected happens. That's fine. I mean, it can happen. But as a judge, you try to prepare for everything.
Mm-hmm. Now, with the handlers getting better and better, so let's talk about all the very big competitions, I think, with the very best handlers. And usually we're talking about large dogs. There are more large dogs than the other classes, although the small and medium, they're getting more and more competitors every year. So looking at the large dogs now, you have these runs where the top 10 dogs maybe are all within half a second or 3/4 of a second. They're very, very close together. And my feeling is that maybe the course design is not difficult enough. That's why I was happy to see the agility round at the Agility World Championship, because it really rewarded people who handled well or knew their dogs very well. You couldn't just run in front of your dog and be fast and use your athleticism to get everywhere to get your clean run. The course was a little bit more complex, a little bit tricky. And there were things that a lot of the handlers didn't even think about, and they don't normally think about because nobody makes them think about it. So in your mind, do you think, okay, well, it's a big competition, I need to make this a little bit more difficult, or is there pressure to make things a little easier so that the qualifying rate is higher and everybody's going to be happy with you?
I think depends on the competition. When I was preparing for the World Championship, so it was in Spain, so 2016. I got my schedule. I know what courses I have to design, and I knew that the individual jumping will be kind of a selection already for the final, because the agility is the final. They're running according to the results from the jumping. So if you want to make the final exciting, you don't kill the competition already in the first run, right? So, but at the same time, it has to be challenging too. So I think finding the balance is really hard. When I designed that course for the jumping, I tried to give them just more options in the handling, and the course was, I think, challenging enough. But I got like 40% clean runs, what is really good, and we needed that for the final, and especially because the final course was hard. And that's why this year in the jumping we had for sure less, and that was not that good for that agility course. I'm talking about the large. If we have a little bit more clean runs, that's fine. Because actually the biggest problem was the time. If you check the time from the jumping, it wasn't that close. It was kind of, compared to the last years or other runs, or when we're talking about EO is really harder, I think, because we have more dogs in the category, and that's why when I was in Austria last year on the third place in the qualification on the agility course, when I checked the result, the first 30 dogs was in 1 second. But it's fine, it's okay. But that course was a little bit easier, and so this year at the World Championship, the jumping course was too much. I think with the backsides, it caused many bars, so that already selected the class, and the lines, everything was just too hard. So, for example, those backsides, forced backsides, are really tricky for the dogs. So some of them do it with full speed, and some of them questioning those backsides, especially when you have 3-4. And I think as a judge, you have to know that. And that caused that time differences too in the end. So depending on the competition, you know what you have to do. I mean, even for big events, you can give really challenging course, but you have to be careful because you just don't want to kill it, and you have to expect that the stress level goes higher too.
Right.
So not the same as, for example, actually for me the EO is easier than the World Championship. I mean, running that competition, because EO is an outdoor competitions, many rings. They have like 2 qualification runs before the final. I think the stress level is not the same as at the World Championship. Huge arena, more people watching you, and the tribune is really big, and that creates a higher pressure too.
Right. And you mentioned that you have to find that balance between I guess the technical and the running, and balance between the difficulty level and where you are. Over the years, have you seen like that balance point change? Like, has it? My feeling is that the competition the handling has gotten so good that what would be considered really tricky several years ago is not necessarily that tricky. So then how do you continue to maintain that balance?
I think, I think depends on the country too, and the teams, but I think it's going to be a little bit trickier. And maybe, so my goal is now designing courses where it's not like just that way challenging, running clear, and then maybe we have a few options in the course path, but I want to make the handlers thinking when they have the course working, how to run it, which way would be faster. So more like that, they have to make a tactical decision too. So they have to know which way is better for them, the wrap or the slice, or just a little bit more thinking. And actually the course from Toshi was good that way at the World Championship, so the large jumping, because the opening sequence was actually really tricky. We had at least 2-3 options, and so that way actually it was a good sequence. Maybe the backsides made it a little bit uncomfortable, but I like the situation we have to think. And it was really interesting actually. Before the course working, I was in the first group, and with many experienced handlers, and we are just thinking, how the hell should we do that?
Right.
I mean, which way is the fastest? And that was a good one. I liked that.
Yeah, that was one thing that I had that thought on that opening is that, yes, it's backside after backside after backside, but that actually creates so many variations, so many choices, because each backside can be usually handled, technically can be handled 4 different ways, like wrap one ring, wrap the other ring, slice one wing, slice the other wing. Usually one of those wraps is just ridiculous. So usually it's like 3 potential ways. And then if you follow that immediately by another choice, that's 3 potential ways. And so like by math, that's 9 options right there. And so it does create that element of choice that you mentioned. So that's something, so that sounds like a pro tip if you're running a triage course, to be prepared for choices. Try. Ah, man, I got it in the opening. I've spent years calling them triage. I found out last year at AWC that it was try harder. That's
exactly.
And I fell right back into my old habits. So let's talk about another course design element, which is designing for different heights. That's something that as Americans, we only see at these international competitions. And so as a judge, what kind of things are you thinking about? What adjustments are you making when you design for different heights?
First of all, unluckily, most of the times we design the same course for all categories. So for small, medium, and large. But sometimes we have special competitions, especially when they have more rings, so they can split the heights better. So one small ring and a medium ring and a large ring. Then we are lucky to have different courses for the categories. But so when we design the same course for everyone, I always design it for the large, because we have to understand that they need more space, because they stride, that physically they are bigger, of course, but they stride is longer too. So they land taking off earlier and then landing later, a little bit deeper after the obstacle. And depending on the sequence, when it's really open line, the stride gets really, really long. So that means they need more room. More room means bigger distance between the obstacles. If I design the course for small, then I expect a little bit closer landing spot on the obstacle, so I can put the obstacles, the jumps a little bit closer to each other. It doesn't mean I use that small distance, but the setup. So maybe an off jump is close to the dog's path or something. But so important to design for the long strided dogs, the course. And actually that makes the difference. So when I design a course for small dogs, then I just use a little bit different angles, smaller distances, not like the maximum or maybe more than the maximum distance. And actually the medium is the tricky category, because I would say that the traditional way in Europe is when the medium is running the small course, and then we have a separated course for the large. But when you watch them, the medium dogs, how they run, how they turn, how long they stride is, I would say actually that the course style should be more like large dogish than small dog course. So if I design a course for medium, that's more a little bit like a large course, not like a small.
Yeah, you get a lot of those medium dogs that run like big dogs, and you get a lot of breeds that are large, undersized, larger breeds, like yes. Your, small border collies, and some of those really, really fast, medium-sized breeds. So I hear that you are going to be judging the USA and the Canadian tryouts this year. So we'll have you on this side of the ocean for the Agility World Championship. Yep.
Yes. Second time. I've done it before. I think, I don't remember the year. Maybe it was 2014 or... maybe, yes. So I've done it before, and I like that so much. So looking forward to being there again.
Excellent. So we will look forward to seeing you there and checking out your courses. And we've had the pleasure of running lots of Try courses because we get practice courses that we use for our training. So it's been a lot of fun getting to run those courses. And just as you mentioned, the flow on them is fantastic. You might look at a map and just see, if you just look at a map with no numbers, you'd be like, oh my gosh, there's so much going on here. But once you put all the numbers, somehow magically the path for the dog is just this beautiful flowing path and really, really fast and really, really fun to run. And I believe also you are an FCI delegate for Hungary.
Yes.
And so what does that mean exactly? It means that you have a little input or you're part of what does that mean for those of us who don't know?
Well, hopefully I have an input because otherwise it would be really a wasted time. So because every FCI country has a delegate, and we are in the FCI Agility Committee. And we get together twice a year. We have a meeting after the World Championship on Monday every year and the first weekend of February, where the next World Championship will be held. And, we make decisions. We changing the rules, the guidelines. We influencing many things, basically the FCI regulations.
What's the big rule change or thing you guys are thinking about right now that you can tell us?
Oh, that's a secret.
If you can't tell it, if it's a secret, you can't tell us. But is there anything that we can know?
Well, as you know, every year there is one more country at least, or even more, who's introducing the extra high categories, maybe four or five, And now the FCI Agility Committee has a working group. We are analyzing, and I'm in the working group. So we are analyzing that situation, and we making plans and options how we should do it and change it the next time when we are able to change the regulation. So we are thinking about how to introduce 4 or 5 categories. Actually.
Interesting.
And how often are those rule changes? Because you said when we can next.
The FCI regulation can be changed every 5 years.
5th year. Oh, wow. So when's the next possibility?
That means 2023, January, when the new regulation will be valid.
Okay. Wow. And so,
but it means we have to start the preparation now. So it takes time to, especially when we decide, the committee decides that we're introducing an extra category or 2 height categories, then that means we have to change so many things. For example, the schedule for the World Championship. I mean, it influences many, many things. So it takes time.
Rules and spacing requirements and everything.
Yeah.
And your home country of Hungary is one of the countries that has added additional heights. So y'all have 4 height classes?
Yeah, we have 4. We call this intermediate between the medium and large. We call it M+. We named that after the medium. And but actually, we are going to change it this Friday because the border is now the lower height of the large. So 43 centimeter, and the upper border is 48. But most of the countries introduce this intermediate class with 43 to 50. So 50 is the border, the highest border, and that's what we are going to change.
So you're going to kind of match up with what a lot of the other countries are doing.
Yes.
And how long ago did y'all add that? And what has changed in your typical agility trial for that?
So I think it's we introduced that 2 years ago, and our main goal was supporting the Hungarian breeds because in agility, because we have many Moody's in large category, and physically they have a really hard time to jump 60 centimeters. So that's really hard for them. So we just wanted to support them this way. And then we saw more and more countries coming and introducing this height class. So now we started to think about it again. Maybe we should change the rules a little bit and the borders. So, well, let's see. Actually, because it's an official class, but if you compete international level, then you have to stay in the large category so far, according to the rules. And that's why not so many teams applied for this M+, because they wanted to qualify for the World Championship or for the EO. And that's why what we're going to change is the EO, so the international events, like the EO, Junior EO, and the World Championship will be an inspection. So even they run at the tryouts and run at the big events, it doesn't count. So they can compete in M+ before and after those events.
Right. And for those who may not know the full history of heights in FCI, there was a time when there were only 2 heights. So it's
Yes.
This is not unprecedented. It's been many, many years since they added the medium height class, but it used to just be small and large, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, let me just jump in real quick. So for the Americans here who don't know how many centimeters is what, 43 centimeters is approximately 17 inches, like 16.9 or something inches. So that's your dog. We're talking about the dog's height at the shoulders. So 43 to 48 centimeters, 48 is 18.9 inches. And then, and that's what you guys were doing in Hungary. I like that. I think I like that better than the 50 inches because the extra 2 inches just lets in more border collies, because 50 centimeters is 19.6 inches. And so now you're going to start to see a lot of border collies move into that height class. And I like the idea of having this medium plus where you can get some of the non-border collie breeds in there and competing. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see where the FCI, if they decide to do this, where are you going to make the cutoff? What kind of, what are you expecting to see at the World Championship? Because does everybody want to see now, 2 height classes with nothing but border collies in it,
Yes, that's a big question, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe we have to completely change the borders, the shoulders. So not only this intermediate. So, well, it's going to be a hard decision for sure. But maybe just not a simple an additional category between medium and large. Maybe we have to make a bigger change.
Yeah. Right? And it's going to be hard because, everybody is going to support the changes that benefit them. If it's good for the dog they have right then, they're going to want to do it, right? They're not going to be thinking about everybody else's dog. They're only going to be thinking about themselves and their own dog very often when they talk about these heights. So it's interesting because you're right. You might have to change
the definition of small.
The definition of medium for sure. Is it important at all, or a consideration, that breed diversity is good at getting different kinds of breeds? It sounds like it is in Hungary at least, but do you think the FCI as a whole really cares if there's all just border collies and shelties, or really nobody? That's not why we're changing the heights, to get more breeds.
No, I think that's not really influencing this decision.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting. And then I have one more question related to the heights. What is the big difference between doing 4 heights and 5 heights? Like in your mind, what's the big difference there?
Well, making the competition slower because of the height changes. And maybe it splits so for example, in small countries, like where let's see, Hungary. So we have 200 or 300 active teams. Or maybe less. It's always changing. But okay, let's say 150. if we have 5 categories and 3 levels, then that can happen. We have only 1 dog in 1 category and height. So like extra small A1. Maybe we have only 1. We don't get that many teams right now. So, and it on a big event or on countries with thousands of dogs, that can be easily manageable. But in small countries, then maybe we just can't open all the classes.
Right.
We have not enough dogs.
Yeah, that's interesting too. One thing that I've thought about, and I don't know what your view on this is changing or getting rid of or doing something with the team runs. You know, the European Open they do it a little bit different from the Agility World Championship, but in a lot of situations, yes, with the team, you know, it's another chance to win medals. So I think people like that. And I think people like it. A lot of competitors are going to use it perhaps as a warm-up run, you know, to kind of get ready for the individual runs. But then other people, like all they do is they qualify only for team. They're not going to do the individual round, you know, and if that goes away, then you lose that. Or like, what are your thoughts on how we do team events right now?
Well, so first of all, depending on the countries, we have all kind of qualification systems. In Hungary, we have a different system for the team and different system for the individual. So what can happen is, as happened to me, I qualified for individual, but I didn't for the team. But we had dogs who qualified for both, or we had dogs who qualified only for the team. And but actually, I believe it's good because, for example, our individual system is supporting the fast dogs, even they failing a little in more runs, but they get better times, because in the individual you need a fast dog, of course. So you can have a clean run with a small dog, but you can't get anything in the end. But in the team, you need to have a team who is able to run clean runs with maybe not the fastest time, but still they can stay in the standard time. But for that, we have a completely different system. You have to have a different system. Who believes that the team run is good for a warm-up, they should not run team.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm the team leader or I'm the delegate and I hear somebody saying that, I would kick her or him off, and I would say, okay, next year you are not allowed to qualify in the team because it's not acceptable. That's my opinion. Maybe a little bit strict, but that's not a team. How do you say that?
The team spirit.
Team spirit. Yes. Mm-hmm. My opinion.
Interesting.
But, yeah.
so when you expand to these jump heights, though, we're saying that several countries, if they expand to the jump heights, then several countries may not be able to fill every category. And it's so interesting to hear you say there's 200, maybe 300 competitors in Hungary, for example, where I feel like agility is very strong. Here in the United States, we, of course, have thousands, right? Almost like 10,000 different people will have at least one clean run in AKC.
I think it's more like 20,000.
Yeah, it's a huge number, right? We number in the thousands. But even for us, when you look at tryouts for the Agility World Championship for, say, the medium team, some years there's only, 20, 24 dogs, even trying out for the team. It's a very, very small number. And if you split up the groups even more, it may be even less. Maybe, maybe only 10 dogs try out for 1 year. Maybe you kind of dilute the quality of the team runs a little bit. So I think that's interesting.
Or in individual, the same can happen. For example, let's see, we are able to delegate 9 individual teams for the World Championship. And depending on the country, they split it somehow. Maybe they say, okay, 3 for small, 3 for medium, and the rest for large. But if we introduce 4 height categories, then, if we analyze the time schedule and we say that it's not possible to make the days longer. So we keep the 9. The categories will be just too small. So maybe we have this intermediate with 40 teams, 40 dogs at the World Championship. So maybe that's not that good. So that means maybe we should open it, the individual spots for more dogs, maybe 12. But then we have to reschedule everything and see if it's possible to manage. Because, until... So last year, the World Championship was in Sweden. And in Sweden, the first time we had 1 day extra. But before it was in Spain, it was extremely long. We had one day less because we started the competition on Thursday with the trainings, and we had already one team run for the large dogs. And I remember sometimes we had course walking at 7 in the morning, and we were still there in the hall at 9 in the evening. And now it's more comfortable with this extra day. So actually we have just one run per day. It's really comfortable. But if we allow to have more teams or more individual spots, then maybe in the end it will be the same. So is it good or not? Or is it a good thing? Only one competition, the World Championship, influencing the all FCI regulations because it's just one event. So it's a hard decision.
Yeah,
because
that's
of course.
interesting.
So the FCI Agility Committee is actually, so we make the FCI regulations, we're creating the rules, but the member countries can have their own national rules. So they can use the FCI strictly, or they can be more flexible. As Hungary, we introduced an extra high class, for example. So we actually follow the FCI rules, but we have some additional sentences. So even the FCI says that, okay, we keep 3, but all the countries can do whatever they want. Maybe that's another way. But then the question is how we control it, because if they have different kind of rules, then it's really hard to compete in the different countries according to different regulations. So maybe the FCI has to control it better, but
it's complicated.
Yeah. Definitely a lot to think about. And I think that's one good thing about the AKC, right? The American Kennel Club. If you go to a show in Texas or in California, the rules are the same.
Right.
Everything is very much standardized. But for FCI, I think a lot of people don't realize that each country kind of does their own thing a little bit. And so, they all show up for this big event, but it really is an organization of members where they each have their input and they're doing their own thing.
So over the years, you've been doing seminars on course design and course safety, and now you're part of an online class that covers these topics as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that class?
So we're doing that with the guys Petr Pupik and Egil Eide, 3 of us, and I think it's going well. So we're focusing on different topics as safety courses and safety course design and creative part and small, large course differences or different size of dimensions of rings like square or the European style rings or really small rings. Especially winter time, we have indoor competitions in I can tell you only meter, but it's like 34 by 16, 15, that's really narrow, but you still have to able to design nice courses there. So, but it's more like practice. Of course, we have some video lessons and we explain it, but it's really a lot of practice. So actually, we started it in September, and I just checked the files. What we shared with us was like more than 900 courses. What they uploaded. And including our feedback, and mostly depending on the challenges, we're giving video feedback. So when you recording the screen, so you can explain better. if what kind of changes you have to make and why. I think that's really good. I like the written version too, but sometimes easier to show it than just write it down, and then in the end maybe they just don't get it perfectly. So that's what we are doing now, and the second edition will start in January, and we're gonna rethink a little bit the platform, because now we have this Facebook group and we're sharing the files on a Dropbox, but we're gonna do, I think, we're gonna have a homepage and a little bit different style class from next summer.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. When it first popped up, that was one of the reasons that we wanted to bring Tráj on. I can't believe we haven't had you on before, because we talk about you all the time as being this fantastic judge. But having this course with 2 other judges, I thought, okay, we definitely need to get Tráj on to talk about this. And then I just didn't, I just got distracted and didn't see the first iteration of it when it went live. And I just messaged one of your partners about it and got all the information for January. So I'm definitely going to be in that January class looking at what you have for course design. And I find it really exciting to hear you mention things like designing for square rings and designing for smaller rings, because I think that's one of the things that it is a big difference between the typical United States trial and the typical, at least world champion, course. Maybe weekend, from weekend to weekend, you may not have as much space, but when we're trying to prepare, when the competitors on the US side are trying to prepare for an event like EO or the Agility World Championship, that the size of the ring, and not just the square footage, but the shape of the ring, makes a huge difference in how things are laid out and the challenges presented. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what expert judges can do with a space like that, and still have that safety and that flow that we've been talking about this whole podcast.
Yeah, actually, this square ring was not that hard for me when I judged the UK Canadian Open in August this year, and I got the course size. It was 30 by 30 meter, so it was a square, but
100 feet by 100 feet.
And that's very typical here. Yeah. 100 by 100.
That's usually all.
And honestly, it was challenging for me, but not because of that it's impossible. It was just really unusual for me, because we have different dimensions. What I got used to it, so I just had to spend a little bit more time to manage that dimension. But actually, it was not that hard. And honestly, it's not an excuse. So okay, it's a square ring, but I think I did a great job. I mean, I like the courses, and I try always keep my style, and it was definitely the same as here in Europe. A little bit different because of the dimensions, but more or less the same. So who's saying that it's not possible to design nice, fast, and safe courses on a square dimension ring? That's just excuse, but I think it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's just when we're patterning ourselves after, it's hard when you're learning a lot through example, and the examples that you see are constantly these big, long rings. And so then when you try to emulate that, you get stuck. But that's why I'm so excited to see what an expert can do with that space. So I can't wait for January. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Let me just jump in here, because here courses in the US, are obviously a little bit different. And but there's still like a big push right now, I think, for bigger spacing, especially in consideration of our large dogs. And I don't mean for us, not our not large border collies. I think agility here in the United States is much more diverse as far as breeds. We have many Labrador retrievers and golden retrievers and Dobermans and really big dogs jumping in 24 inches. where the spacing between obstacles is not good. And usually what you see is not really dangerous situations, but we see a lot of drop bars, single bounce striding, just very, very cramped, and it causes problems for these dogs. So, there's a big push for let's try and get more spacing. So I like the idea of people looking at the things you're doing, maybe getting involved in this course that's coming up. And then, obviously the rules between organizations are different. The restrictions are much different here in the American Kennel Club, for sure. So, but to take some ideas and then to be creative on, the American judging side. And I think hopefully that can lead to a real, like a renaissance in course design here in the United States, where suddenly we have a little bit more space, a little bit more flow. Maybe you get some more cues for some of these bigger dogs. We encourage our breed diversity, and, we can continue to advance the sport. The sport is going to continue to change, rather than saying, we're okay here, this is what we do, this is how it's always going to be.
Yep, absolutely. So I have one last question for you that I had just thought of, and I want to hear your thoughts. And that is, when we get a try course, a practice course, okay? One of the hallmarks of a try practice course is that it's going to be like 30 to 40 obstacles, right? So my question to you is, when you have a practice course like that, how do you expect people to tackle that course? Like, is that intended to be almost like two nested courses? Is it intended to test the memory and the ability to hold it together for a whole thing? Like, or is it just kind of whatever, kind of make your own adventure out of it? Do you want to go for doing the whole thing, or doing it in pieces, or do you have any sort of expectation on how that should be run?
Okay, wait, before you answer that,
okay.
So what Sarah's talking about is, at Bad Dog Agility, we have the Bad Dog Agility Training Academy online. You can train and work with us. We call them the VIP members. And what we do is we bring in 4 judges, right? 4 outside judges, 1 American, 2 Brits, and Tamás, of course, and they design our practice courses, right? So each judge will get a certain number of courses a year. They go out to all the members, and our members set them up, and they work on them and things like that. And so that's what Sarah's talking about here, in case people didn't understand what was going on. So, okay, now you can go ahead and answer.
So all the things what you mentioned, I would say all in one. So, of course, I sent you a course with 40 obstacles, but it doesn't mean that you have to run only one. So from 1 to 40, you can break it down. So I have seminar courses with 40 numbers or 50 sometimes, but maybe we just run the first 20 on the first day and the rest the second day. Or sometimes it takes so much time to run only 7 obstacles, but we have a huge variation of the handling options. So maybe we do 3-4 different ways, we time it, and then we move on, and maybe we run a little bit longer sequence again. But I think I most of the times sometimes I say that, okay, now run from beginning, and then they have to run 25, but it's never about running 50 or 45. Right. It's just you got that many numbers, and you can just split it. So. But sometimes testing the handler's memory, we run 30, but hardly ever. But then the course is not that crazy hard. So when you can make sure that they are able to manage it, okay, that's a little bit testing the handlers. But most of the times we don't train that long.
Right. Yep. Well, that's pretty much what we've been doing. We'll get it. We'll usually walk. We'll usually walk maybe half and run it in pieces and walk the other half. Mm-hmm. But it's an interesting, it's just something that I've noticed lots of typically European judges will have these practice courses. But people sometimes look at it and they take it very literally. that this is a 50 obstacle course, and it's not. It's a layout that has a 50 obstacle sequence that you can attack in any way that you want to kind of further your own training and get better at different pieces of that. And it is fun, though, when you can put it all together after you work it on piece by piece and then put together a substantial length of it and really get that feeling of accomplishment of attacking that course.
Yeah.
Next time, maybe I just number it with different colors, like first
Right.
10 with yellow, first and then second 10 with blue or whatever, because then you can see better only the sequence than the full course. But
Right.
yeah, sometimes they believe it's okay. You get 40 numbers, and it means that run all in one. But it's never about this.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we should wrap it up. We have kept Tamás on the phone a long time, and it is nighttime over there. We're in the middle of our day, so relax and enjoy the rest of your evening. And thank you so much for joining us. We have really enjoyed talking
Thank
to you
you.
about all of this.
Thank you
course
so
design
much.
stuff.
It was
All right.
fun. Thank you.
And that's it for this week's podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors, 1TDC.com, hititboard.com, and also NTI Global. Fall in love with their agility products. Visit shop.ntiglobal.com for the widest selection of dog agility tunnels for both competition and backyard training. Known for free shipping, more options, high-quality products, and low prices, NTI Global has got you covered. They also offer Tamer and Anchor weight bags along with a full line of accessories and agility storage solutions. Need your agility gear in a hurry? Don't forget to check the in-stock selection. Visit shop.ntiglobal.com and use promo code 2019 Tunnel Products for 5% savings off today. Promo code good through October 31st, 2019. Happy training!